Hello and welcome to the Gaggle World Challenge, and if necessary, destroy media narratives. I'm George Szamuely. With me today, of course, is co-founder of the Gaggle, Peter Lavelle. So, Peter, it's always very hard, and we've worked a lot on trying to figure out the mind of Donald Trump. I mean,
I surrender.
exactly. It's just mind-boggling. It's
Surrender.
trying to understand it. But one thing that does stand out is that he has a very shrewd political sense. I mean, he has a very diverse political coalition, to say the least, supporting him. He has all those insane Israel firsters, the Mark Levins and Ben Shapiro's, and then of course he has the non-interventionists such as Thomas Massey, but Marjorie Taylor Greene, Steve Bannon, and he has to keep them happy. And it seems like he has developed a strategy to keep them happy, each of them happy, and that seems to be that he kind of does a one-off.
But not at the same time.
Not at the same time, exactly. So he does a one-off attack against country X, but then he kind of leaves it at that. It doesn't really, there's no follow-up. And then when there's no follow-up, having first pleased the interventionists, the non-interventionists quite pleased. Well, look, I mean, at least Donald Trump isn't dragging us into a protracted war. And so what we saw in Iran was something like this. He launched this attack unprovoked, obviously. It never happened before. The United States attacked Iranian territory, and then he just called it a day and said, "That's it. I'm not going to do this
Oh,
anymore."
we might
And
we'll be in negotiations next
we'll be in
week.
negotiations, and now is the time for peace. Congratulations, world peace is at hand.
And you can thank me.
And you can thank me for it. It's very peculiar on one hand, but at the same time, he's managed to keep Levin happy for a time being, because then Levin isn't happy about the hey, let's stop here. But he's managed to keep them both happy. There doesn't seem to be much of a strategy here, to say the least. But he does seem to be moving in this kind of political direction. And then if you look in the first term, the pattern, appeared in exactly the same way. Remember, he assassinated General Soleimani, but then that
And
was it.
then, and then,
And then, he allowed Iran to have one free shot. He didn't retaliate against the Iran's free shot because he didn't want a protracted war with Iran. Saying that, he twice attacked Syria, boasted each time, hey, I did something that Barack Obama didn't do. But, there was no real follow-up. He just one attack, one shot, nothing further.
the Iranians shot down some really very, very expensive reconnaissance drones. But Bolton is right next to him. Hit the button, Mr. President. Hit the sign here.
Right.
And then he backed off.
Yep. Yeah. That way he kind of gets to be, hey, I'm a tough guy, but I'm also a non-interventionist. It's very a peculiar position, but he gets, a certain adulation on Twitter and on Truth. Is that, oh, Trump's the peacemaker. Oh, Trump's done something. Oh, Biden didn't do this. No, what am I? So he basks in this praise, but it's hard to see any real logic to
Well,
it. I mean, where does this get him?
okay, well, so he's a peacemaker. He is by avocation, he is an interventionist.
Right.
There is a third option. He doesn't know what he's doing. I'm sorry. Okay. What's interesting about it is that, we learned this term, at least when it comes to geopolitics during the Cold War, brinkmanship. Okay,
Right.
playing a game of brinkmanship. Now, nominally speaking, and the way we usually use the term is it's big country, great country against another great power versus another. It's a brinkmanship between great powers.
Right.
Well, Donald Trump has nuanced it. It's brinkmanship within his own coalition. That's what it is. Okay.
Right.
And so, yeah, he incrementally is trying to satisfy both. I don't see it resolving any problems. And In fact, I would say this whole policy will make his problems, compound his problems as we go forward. Remember, everybody, we've got 3.5 more years of this.
Right.
And I'll tell you, the last few weeks have been breathtaking,
Right.
breathtaking.
Right.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I think that, he- for whatever his faults, and there are many, many of them, um, there's one thing, he's just media savvy.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, what drives his decision-making
Right.
process. Can he control the news cycle?
Right.
And you would have thought, um, how can someone 24/7 be obsessed with the news cycle? Well, we have a president of the United States that is.
You're right. Right.
I remember an interview with George H. Bush,
Mhm.
and he was asked did he like the job. He said, "I love my job. I really enjoy being president." Of course, he'd been working towards it for decades. Um, but there was a question that came about in his profile, how he's seen in the public, and he said, "Well, I don't really want it to be about me,
Mhm.
you know." And his people were telling them, you know, to show his involvement because he always seemed a little bit distant.
Right.
Okay, a little distant, very patrician, the last patrician president we had,
Right.
and but you have to the White House, the administration has to be what we say now control the news
Right.
cycle, and they were convincing him to say something important, only one
Right.
important thing a day.
Right.
So, they can feed it to the legacy media and all that. And he was even hesitating to do
Right.
that. Trump gives us 15 a day.
Right. No,
And then the next 3 days, we're reacting to what he said on that day. But by then, he's already got 30 more points out there.
no, I think it's right. And I think George H.W. Bush was simply not liked by the public.
Well, he didn't like people.
He didn't like people, and what he was good at, he was a good administrator. I mean, he ran a very efficient team. He knew how to do that. He says, hey, he's been preparing for it all his life. He'd held all sorts of important positions in government, and but I think when he talks sarcastically, oh, the vision thing, he didn't have a vision. I mean, he had nobody. He thought, hey, you get to be president and you kind of administer things. You run this department, run that department. Resolve crises as they come along, trying to minimize any fallout. And of course, that didn't go down well in the media, didn't go down well in the public. And one of
They
the
go
reasons,
down with the Republican Party,
right,
even.
and exactly, and that's one of the reasons why he was riding high at something like I don't know 90% approval after the first Gulf War, and then next year, 92, he was tanking in the sort of 30s and 40s, and there was just no way he was going to get reelected. So it was indeed wrong. He is the very opposite of Trump. Trump just is absolutely understands how the media work, how he can boom, just move and just say something, true something out. Hey, everyone in CNN is talking about, oh, do you know what Donald Trump just said? And boom, and then everybody's talking about it, everybody's reacting to it, and then the next day he says something. He says the opposite thing, and it's just
Well,
dizzying.
he does it to us. We
Right,
we get ensnarled in it all the time.
right,
But the conclusion, what conclusion can we draw from this? We should ask the question, does it resolve anything? And
right.
it very rarely does. I mean, what is the Trump administration's policy on Iran right now, George? Do you know?
No, I think other than
I,
just
I don't
no,
either.
none, hoping
None.
that there's going to be some kind of a deal, even though Iran said we're not going to negotiate anything. So he keeps telling, making these announcements, oh, we're close to a deal, and then there's no deal. I mean, the Iranians perfectly understandably said, we've kind of been burned twice now negotiating with these deals. We had negotiated the JCPOA, and then Trump, was the one he walked out, and we didn't get anything out of that. Then we negotiated again with him, Trump, and then we got clobbered. And now we're going to join the third time with him, Trump, to negotiate what? I mean, it's so. I mean, what's the incentive? So, but the peculiarity of Trump, I mean, so slightly segue into another thing is this: he suddenly embraced the cause of Bibi Netanyahu, which is very, very peculiar because up until now we had been under the assumption that relations between the two men had been a little fraught. After all, Trump has not forgotten about Netanyahu not having followed through on his promise that they would deal with Soleimani together. Trump has not forgotten that Netanyahu was among the first leaders to congratulate Biden on his election victory in 2020. And then it seemed, at least in the early months of the presidency, Netanyahu was trying to push the United States into attacking Iran while Trump was thinking in terms of some kind of a great deal. But now, apparently, Trump is agitated, absolutely infuriated that Bibi Netanyahu is facing criminal prosecution in Israel. And
As far as I know, tomorrow he'll be back in court.
he'll be back in court. And Trump is very, very upset about it. So he sent out this truth rather, the other day. Let me find it. Yeah, here's this. And it's he was saying that look, he says breaking news. So I mean, everybody in the world seemed to have known about this. That Netanyahu's got serious legal problems, and it was his legal problems that may explain a lot of Netanyahu's policies. Breaking news, I was shocked to hear that the state of Israel, which has just had one of its greatest moments in history and is strongly led by Bibi Netanyahu, is continuing its ridiculous witch hunt against their great wartime prime minister, Bibi. Wartime prime minister. And no, great time. Bibi and I just went through hell together. Can you explain, how did Trump go through hell? I mean, what did he do? I mean, he launched some bombs on the three Iranian nuclear sites. I mean, that's going through hell. I mean, I don't.
Yeah, I'm sorry, but President Trump seems to be, he's gone a little bit woke here. I mean, he's a victim here. He
He's
went
the
through.
victim, exactly. And then it says, fighting a very tough and brilliant longtime enemy of Israel, Iran. And Bibi could not have been better, sharper, or stronger in his love for the incredible Holy Land.
It's very the Holy Land. Well, it's the Holy Land for a lot of different people, Mr. President. Okay.
It's indeed. It is indeed. Um, Anybody else would have suffered losses, embarrassment, and chaos. Bibi Netanyahu was a warrior like perhaps no other warrior in the history of Israel. I wonder, does he mean like modern Israel, or going all the way back into the Bible?
Was he dictating this as he was drawing a bath for BB? Yeah.
um, and the result was something that nobody thought was possible: a complete elimination of potentially one of the biggest and most powerful nuclear weapons anywhere in the world. What does that mean?
He's not letting that go either.
But he says a complete elimination of potentially one of the biggest and most powerful nuclear weapons anywhere. Does he mean nuclear weapons state or nuclear weapons? I mean, Iran wasn't potentially anything. I mean, I don't think Iran was potentially a rival of Russia or the United States. I mean, like potentially one of the biggest and most powerful. Were they going to develop some absolutely huge, biggest ever ICBM system that, with a most number of warheads bunged on top of it? I don't know what he means by one of the biggest and most
Well,
powerful nuclear.
from a legal point of view, I mean, what is the predicate? I mean, you arrest somebody before they commit a crime. I mean, that's very much against the Western tradition. Okay. I mean, again, this is just hyperbole, but I think it's amazing that, he's still staying with obliteration, elimination,
Elimination, yeah.
and everybody is pushing back.
That's right.
Okay.
And it was going to happen soon. So it was going to happen soon. So again, he's just simply repeating talking points from Mossad. We already know his own intelligence agencies were telling him, hey, no evidence that any of this is going to happen soon. We were fighting literally for the survival of Israel. The survival of Israel. So that's amazing. So Israel launches a war, and now it was supposed to be the survival of Israel. So he and I.
George, why is he talking about Israel? And I think a lot of people are going to be saying, why
Yeah,
you don't have better things to do?
yeah. Yeah. Yeah, yeah, that's right. Exactly. This preoccupation with Israel. And there is nobody in Israel's history that fought harder or more competently than Bibi Netanyahu. This
Oh
is,
yeah, right, right, right. Your friend Bibi put it was there was an existential threat to Israel because of Bibi and because of you, Trump.
yeah. But imagine look, I mean, just the fulsomeness of these words for an extremely unpopular political leader in Israel. I mean, can't you, Israelis are
You know
reading
that
this.
Haaretz, the newspaper, there's a commentator. He said that Benjamin Netanyahu is the most hated Jew in history, and that came from Israeli media.
That's a good one. June is-
I think it was
who
Glenn Greenwald that said that in one of those podcasts. But it was even I thought, oh, that's an interesting statement from.
that's exactly hated you because you kind of wonder, I mean, who would be vying for that honor, yeah. Um, um, that 400 them, and then it goes on. This is very long. This is a long truth. Despite all of this, despite all of this,
I just learned.
just learned. This way, somebody came into my office and just told me. I just learned that Bibi has been summoned to court on Monday
Monday.
for the continuation of this long running, and then it goes off on on a long parenthesis. He has been going through this quote horror show unquote since May of 2020, unheard of. This is the first time a sitting Israeli prime minister has ever been on trial.
Okay, you don't you think this is vicarious? I mean, he identifies BB in
Yes,
himself.
yes.
Yeah, obviously.
I'm sure that that's right. However, I don't remember. Maybe that's just my memory flaw. Did Bibi ever come out and fully endorse Trump during all his legal travails when all those four separate criminal prosecutions were launched against him? I don't remember Bibi intervening in the American judicial process.
They don't really care. They'll be able to apparently get have the Mossad be given an audience in the Oval Office, irrespective who's president.
Irrespective, exactly. What do they care? No, Bibi wasn't going to do anything to upset the Biden administration. If he were to intervene on behalf of Trump, hey, he's being unfairly persecuted. That would displease Biden, and that's that. Bibi didn't want to go there. But then again, it just shows the complete lack of balance. So Bibi does nothing for you. There's no record of Bibi having done anything at all for Trump, having said anything that was supportive of Trump. And here's Trump talking in this fulsome way. I mean, it looks like Mark Levin drafted this statement for him.
Well, that could be an interesting theory of the case. Everyone stick that post-it in your wallet. I agree.
Yeah, it sounds this is the way Mark Levin would be, fulminating about how Bibi is being persecuted by these rotten liberals in Israel.
Yeah, Mark Levine wrote it and he passed it by Sean Hannity. Okay.
That's right, exactly. Unheard of. This is the first time a politically motivated case concerning cigars, a Bugs Bunny doll, and numerous unfair charges. So, who provided him with this little nugget? This concerning cigars, a Bugs Bunny doll. He knows nothing about the case, obviously. So somebody had to have told him cigars, Bugs Bunny doll, and numerous other unfair charges. I mean, you read it and
Yeah,
go,
well,
what the hell's that
you know,
about?
I haven't followed it really very, very
No, no,
closely. I
no,
mean,
right.
I'll read a headline and a couple of paragraphs to keep up to date. But Netanyahu has his very base interest. Not he's not a very sophisticated um, leader on the take. A box of cigars, a Rolex watch, who knows, other things maybe unspeak of, but it's cheap. It's very cheap. It's not like, we're going to give you 8% of Rosneft oil. I mean, he never thought that big. It's just really petty, apparently. Okay.
Right,
And
right,
with the real corruption is his corrupting of the Israeli media, getting good flattering coverage
right.
from different media outlets. That's the real. He likes a Bugs Bunny doll. That's a new one for me. Well,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
who cares? Okay.
Right, right. The cigars. I mean, I wonder what he likes expensive cigars. I mean, is that it? Um,
Well, okay. George and I fall back on, and it's not a pristine a legal argument, but it's an argument to get yourself through life. We default on what's the harm? Okay, a box of cigars?
yeah, I don't see box of cigars, even if they're the very expensive. You know, the fanciest Cuban cigars on the market.
I
Still,
do you care?
still doesn't mean that much. I mean, it's not that expensive. It's not
Do you
such a big
care?
gift. Yeah.
You care? A
No,
box?
no,
No.
not at all. Not at all. Um, and
For a man, oh, I'm saying such a witch hunt. Go ahead.
That's right. And unfair charges in order to do him great harm. Such a witch hunt for a man who has given so much is unthinkable to me. It's going on and on. This is long. He
Who knew
deserves.
he had the attention span?
Yeah, exactly. This is really long for him. He deserves much better than this, and so does the state of Israel.
Yeah, but Trump, the Israeli electorate has this, it's almost schizophrenic. They like a lot of his policies, but they detest him as a person.
Right, right. But even on the policies, it's a mix. I mean, I think they
It's a
don't like,
mix. It's a
yeah,
mix.
the Gaza thing. They're not happy about, obviously because the hostages. But I'm not. I think the Iran. He had overwhelming support for waging
Yeah.
a war against Iran. Um, so Bibi Netanyahu trial should be cancelled immediately. Can you imagine that American president
An American president.
flagrantly interferes in sort of domestic Israeli politics? It should be cancelled immediately. Or a pardon given to a great hero. How is he a great hero? What has Netanyahu done to suggest that he's a hero? I mean,
I
has
don't
he
even
ever done
know
anything
if the
heroic?
I don't even know if the president of Israel, which is basically a ceremonial post, I don't know what their its pardon power is, if it exists at
Yeah, I
all.
don't know.
I don't know.
Yeah, yeah. Um, but I also don't know whether he's done anything heroic. I mean, pummeling civilians with bombs from aircraft. I mean, I don't count that as heroic. Assassinating leaders.
Or maybe, George, maybe it's within the realm of possibility that Netanyahu knows something about Trump, and you know, Donald, we'd like to keep this among ourselves, if you know what I mean.
I suppose I always feel like
You got my back, I got your back. I'm just that's a hypothesis, everyone. Okay.
yeah, I realize. I just think that whatever unflattering information we have about Trump, and there is quite a bit, I just don't feel there's anything else. What else
Yeah. Yeah.
can we learn that will shock us, shock the conscience of the world? I mean, I don't know. It's just like it's already out there. I mean, he's not exactly
Well,
most
maybe because
pristine figure.
I agree, but maybe the decision-making process to start this war against Iran, maybe that's something that is better to kept under wraps. Okay. I'm just hypothesizing because I have no idea why he would do something
Right,
like this.
right.
Israel is not a popular topic
No,
in the American public right
no,
now.
no, no. Um, or a pardon to a great hero who has done so much for the state. Perhaps there is no one that I know who could have worked in better harmony with the President of the United States. Me!
Me, God.
Then Bibi Netanyahu. It was the United States of America that saved Israel, and now it is going to be the United States of America that saves Bibi Netanyahu. This travesty of justice cannot be allowed. Now, not only is this a very long truth, whoever wrote it had to have spent quite a lot of time on this. This is actually quite a well-crafted message. It's a little repetitious, but nonetheless, it's clearly somebody went to some trouble to write this. Why would he do this? Normally he's just talking about himself or people who serve
That's a
him.
that's such a good point. That is
Yeah,
such, guys, think about it, everyone. Has Donald Trump written something like this about someone else ever?
ever.
Ever?
Yeah, Yeah, man. Nothing of this. I mean, he says, "Oh, fantastic guy." That's all he says. Yeah, about somebody, Elon Musk, fantastic guy. Before they're falling out, but he wouldn't go on and on and on like this. Um, and then Trump um, got indignant about the Iranian Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei. Now, remember, Khamenei had been threatened with assassination by Netanyahu. He said, "Oh, the war would stop if Khamenei were dead." And then Trump sort of suggested he's an assassination target, but then kind of backed away. And but now he suddenly launches into a lengthy truth attacking Khamenei, because apparently Khamenei wasn't grateful to Trump. He didn't express gratitude for Trump for not having killed him. He says, "Why would the so-called supreme leader?" I love the so-called. It's like,
Well, that's his title.
well, that's his title. I mean, what is so-called? Ayatollah Ali Khamenei of the war-torn country of Iran
Because of you, Donald Trump.
say so blatantly and foolishly that he won the war with Israel. So again, what do you care whether he says he won the war with Israel? I mean, if he says, "Oh, that he won the war with the United States," okay, I can see you might get upset. But at the same time, why would you? You're the president of the United States. What the hell do you care what the Iranian leader says? I mean, you want him to like you? But he's upset. He said blatantly and foolishly that he won the war with Israel. When he knows his statement is a lie, it is not so. As a man of great faith, he is not supposed to lie. His country was decimated. His three evil nuclear sites were obliterated. How can nuclear sites be evil? I mean, but okay. And I knew exactly where he was sheltered and would not let Israel or the U.S. armed forces, by far the greatest, most powerful in the world, terminate his life. I I saved his life. Imagine, because I wouldn't allow Israel or the United States to kill him. I knew where he was hiding. I just didn't allow them to kill him.
I know everything.
That's right. He issued some similar comment about Russia as well. Putin doesn't realize. I've been saving Russia. It could be so much worse. I'm saving Russia. Um, terminate his life. I saved him from a very ugly and ignominious death. And he does not have to say thank you, President Trump. Um, it's a very strange thing for an American president to talk like this. I mean, it's because even let's say it was true. Let's say it was true. An American president isn't supposed to talk like that. You're not supposed to be in the assassination business. I think by law, American presidents are not supposed to order assassinations. Of course, they do, but they're not supposed to. There's supposed to be a law on the books saying that they will not order assassinations. Here he's saying, "Well, I saved your life because I didn't order your assassination." In fact, in the final act of the war, I demanded that Israel bring back a very large group of planes which were heading directly to Tehran, looking for a big day, perhaps the final knockout. Tremendous damage would have ensued, and many Iranians would have been killed. It was going to be the biggest attack of the war by far. Now, that of course is very interesting because that was Israel was doing this after Trump had already announced a ceasefire, which makes it very interesting because let's say that's true or even half true, that after the announcement of a ceasefire, Israel was ready to unleash this huge attack on Iran, something that's completely against the laws of war, and when already there's a peace, because at that moment Iran had already ordered a ceasefire. Iran had already ordered a ceasefire, and Israel was ready to launch this attack. But that's how Netanyahu and Israel operate. I mean, they were probably a little surprised that they were called back. But hey, we always do this. We always say we have a ceasefire, and then we immediately unleash our biggest attack ever. Um, during the last few days, I was working on the possible removal of sanctions and other things which would have given a much better chance to Iran at a full, fast, and complete recovery. So here is 1 minute, a couple of sentences ago, assassination. I was going to lift sanctions. I was working on it. I mean, I was.
And tr Trump can't even, the president can't lift the sanctions, okay? You're going to have to get Congress on board for that,
Yes.
okay?
Yes.
Good luck with that.
Right. Exactly.
Okay?
Exactly. A better chance to Iran at a full, fast, and complete recovery. All right. So Congress, it was nothing is more enthusiastic if in Congress than let's ensure Iran gets a full, fast, and complete recovery. Let's do it as quickly as possible. The sanctions are biting. But no, instead, I get hit with a statement of anger, hatred, and disgust, and immediately drop all work on sanction relief and more. So that's it. So if he hadn't opened his mouth, I was gonna give him the sanction relief.
I don't believe any of this. I'm sorry.
I was working on it. I was about to sign the document, and then he opened his mouth. Well, that's it. No sanction relief for you.
No.
Iran has to get back into the world order flow, or things will only get worse for them. They are always so angry, hostile, and unhappy. And look what it has gotten them: a burnt out, blown up country with no future, a decimated military, a horrible economy, and death all around them. They have no hope, and it will only get worse. I wish the leadership of Iran would realize that you often get more with honey than you do with vinegar. And then peace. I mean, I don't. I was expecting a kind of the peace sign, at the end, like the emoji peace sign to show, hey, I'm a peacenik. But it's just so bizarre. He does this. He launches this attack, and then he's unable to maintain this posture of goodwill towards Iran, and then he goes into this huge tirade because Khamenei. What do you expect the leader of Iran to say? Of course, he's going to say, "We won, we prevailed." I mean, what do you? Any leader is
He-
going to say that?
and he's taking it so personally.
Yes,
Why? Why? You just bombed their country. Hundreds and hundreds of people died,
right,
okay?
right,
And you killed all those generals and their families. And apartment blocks came down.
right.
I
Yes,
mean, you think that, oh yeah, well, it was a fair fight. I shake your hand. The victory is yours. That's only it doesn't even happen in Hollywood films
right,
anymore. I mean, George, it's like he's arguing with himself.
right, right.
And he doesn't understand, why won't you just surrender?
Right,
Okay. I mean, unfortunately for, people like himself, they have this template of the Second World War. That's everything in history happened during the Second
right,
World
right,
War,
right.
which the Second World War was the Second World War.
But
It
the
was a
Second World War. I
unique,
mean,
discrete event.
it is
Okay.
exactly. And he said the unconditional surrender. Nothing ever ends in an unconditional surrender, except what happened in World War II. That was, all of the Axis powers had to surrender unconditionally. But that's a peculiarity. There are no other wars in which it ends with an unconditional surrender. Khamenei didn't do anything. It's not that Khamenei said, we will now strike back at the United States or we will now strike back at Israel. He just said, we prevailed, which is what a leader is supposed to say. I mean, so, but as you say, he takes it so personally and then say, how dare you talk like this? I could have killed you. Hey, maybe I will. I mean, that's what he said. Hey, things could get a lot
Yeah,
worse
but
for you.
that, it's been mentioned before, and I don't want to be trite here, but this is what a mafia don
Yeah,
does.
that's it.
Okay.
It
And
definitely.
and you know what makes it worse, everybody? George, what makes it a lot worse was the tongue bath that he got in Brussels. He
Yeah,
believes his own image of himself. Look,
yeah,
all of these people get on their knees and kiss the
yeah.
ring. Why can't the
Why,
so-called
why
supreme
can't? Yeah,
leader?
exactly. Why can't Khamenei? That's why he says. You look at that. Was it they? What was the word he used? They are always so angry, hostile, and unhappy.
Yeah,
And
they
look
are.
what it has gotten them. Look at that, angry, hostile, and unhappy. You know,
Well, the 1953 coup imposing the Shah,
right.
the Savak.
Right.
Yeah, they're angry. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. Well, no, that's right. And then, of course, even after that, people, the West has forgotten, but they haven't forgotten the Iraq War. They know Iraq invaded at the behest of the United States, and Iraq was armed by the United States and by everybody else, not just but the Western powers. Russia also, the Soviet Union also supported Iraq in that war. So that was went on for what 10 years, almost 10 years. So they have bad memories of that as well. Um, and then was it? You remember when they shot down that Iranian airliner?
The Vincent. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Never really got they never really got any kind of any apology or anything from the Americans for having done that.
Oh,
So
well, George H.W. Bush said America doesn't apologize.
no,
Remember
America
that?
doesn't apologize. Yeah, but you can always take that position because Iran, look, it's in a different league. I mean, it's a regional power, but I mean, it's not a power that can take on the United States. So basically, yeah, you have to take your lumps when you're up against the United States. Um, but but again, when you look at this, you think who drafted this? Was this
Well,
again? Is
but
this from
also,
Bibi's office? Somebody drafted this?
this is perfectly done, perfectly forensically done. Why the love fest for Bibi and the hatred for the Supreme? Is this part of again? I mean, it's childish,
Right.
you know. And if you look at the Bibi truth and this truth, where's the American interest, George?
Right. No,
Maybe maybe
no,
you didn't add it. Maybe you
that
deleted it.
that's
Okay.
right. Where's the American interest? Exactly. Exactly. All of this, pummeling Iran, that's nothing to do with any American interest. None. And that's why. So he did that thing. Okay, I'm satisfied. We thus far and no further. We destroyed those three nuclear facilities. And that's it. But he can't let it go at that. And then he launches into this. And then with Trump is that 2 days later he's going to come in and say, yeah, well, now's the time for peace. I definitely want a deal. I want to work on a deal with Iran. I'm ready to negotiate. My man Steve, he's ready to go anywhere to negotiate something.
I'll go. I'll go to Tehran.
That's right. I'll go to Tehran. You often get more with honey than you do with vinegar. Who's got the honey? Who's doing the vinegar? I mean, this is pretty vinegary. This truth. Um, and then Charlie Kirk, a total fraud. I mean, he's a political hack, a total Trumpian political hack. He's a grifter, making a lot of money. He's a very young guy who's making a lot of money. Being the Trumpian, the leader of the young Trumpians. Just in, President Trump says he will no longer be removing sanctions from Iran after the Ayatollah claimed he won the war.
But there was no indication there was any meaningful move to remove sanctions, everyone.
Exactly.
This is so absurd.
Yep, that's
Keep
right.
going.
But that's, Charlie Kirk, he will no longer be removing sanctions. Well, yes, he's no longer removing sanctions. And he was on the brink.
No, he wasn't.
Exactly. As a man of great faith, he's not supposed to lie. They are always so angry, hostile, and unhappy. I wish the leadership of Iran would realize you often get more with honey than with vinegar. And then Kirk puts in, worth reading the whole thing. It's an all-timer from the president. So he recommends this. So he sends this out. He retruths this. And then Trump retruths this because I don't really follow Charlie Kirk's
I don't either.
account, but I do look at Trump's account, and I saw this on Trump's page. He's retruthing Charlie Kirk.
It's really interesting. Charlie Kirk, I think intentionally, obviously, the line, they are always so angry, hostile, and unhappy. For 50 years, this has been the mantra over and over again. Unreasonable people,
Right,
fanatics.
right,
Well, the unreasonable people are in Washington and Tel Aviv.
right.
They're the ones that are always so angry
Right.
and uber
Right.
hostile.
Right.
Okay.
Right. Exactly.
And, and the fact that the Islamic Republic of Iran exists makes them very,
Right.
very unhappy. This is pure projection. During what was it? What is the Lost Ark? What was that? The popular film with
Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Raiders of the Lost Ark. Th that whole scene when Harrison Ford he's up against this blackly cladded Arab and the covering his face and the guy is I think it was Harrison Ford always had the whip but this guy had this really long sword like the Yemenis they carry and they're going into it and then Harrison Ford just reaches for his gun and shoots him
Right.
because that's okay. There's
Right.
no symmetry. There can never be symmetry.
Right.
This is a neo-colonial
Right.
mindset. They're always so angry, hostile, and unhappy.
Right.
Okay. Well, they have every reason to be all three.
I remember there was a congressman back I remember this was a long time ago. He was in the 90s and he was on some TV show and he said, well, the definition of a moderate Iranian is an Iranian who's run out of ammunition. That's your moderate Iranian. He's run out of ammunition. um,
Which is so bizarre because in the early 80s, and I was living in Southern California at the time, we just had a huge wave from people from Indochina, and then this wave came from Iran. They like warm weather. They went to
right, right, right,
California,
right,
and um, you didn't think about radical or moderate. You just thought, well, these are pretty slick people. These
right,
are
right,
smart people. Okay.
right.
Well, very entrepreneurial, lawyers, doctors, dentists, everywhere. And the
Yep.
food was good too. So, this message, this has been our entire life, George. They are always so angry, hostile, and unhappy. And I
Right,
don't, it's no coincidence whoever wrote that for Trump and Charlie Kirk wants to reinforce that.
right,
Okay. You
right.
know why? Because that's the legitimizing principle for all of this. They didn't try to sell this conflict to the American
No,
people. They
no.
didn't go to the United Nations. They didn't look for a coalition of the willing.
Right,
It suffice to say, they're always so angry, hostile, and unhappy.
right, right. No, no, that's right. Um, and then Trump today sends this out. Make the deal in Gaza. Get the hostages back, DJT. So this, as we were talking earlier, he dominates the news cycle because it sounds like, I mean, who's he badgering here? Make the deal. Hamas? I don't think Hamas is following his account. I mean, it sounds like he's pressuring Israel to make the deal in Gaza. But I thought Bibi was this great hero, the greatest hero in the history of Israel, modern and ancient. Now get the hostages back. So it sounds like, well, hey, Trump wants this deal, and then people and I say, oh yeah, there's going to be a deal within the next
Yeah,
6 months.
well,
There's going to be another
ma-
peace deal on Gaza.
well, maybe he's going to get another briefing by Mossad, and they're going to say, "Well, it doesn't work this way."
Doesn't work. Yes, and then he's back with
Oh
Bibi.
my God! I have never written anything of that length. I don't because I have limitations on characters, but I suppose on Truth Social he has unlimited.
It's unlimited. Yeah, it's terrible what they're doing in Israel to Bibi Netanyahu. It's terrible. The poor man, trying to do his best, and he's suffering. I mean, no one has suffered as much as Bibi. Just you talk about the Palestinians. This is suffering.
Oh,
No, nothing
well,
in Gaza. This is suffering.
I just gave a quick. I thought this was a repeat, but it's not.
No, no, no.
Keep.
No. It's new. He is a war hero. When did he become a war hero? Okay. And a prime minister who did a fabulous job working with the United States to bring great success in getting rid of the dangerous nuclear threat in Iran. Importantly, he is right now in the process of negotiating a deal with Hamas. He's right now, even as we speak, he's negotiating a deal with Hamas. I mean, just it kind of reminds me of what was it? You remember Kamala Harris? No, no, it was AOC. Remember AOC?
Oh, at
who
the
said,
convention. Yeah.
yeah, Kamala Harris is working day and night to get a ceasefire in Gaza. She's working day and night, just no respite. So poor Bibi, he's trying to work out this deal with Hamas, which will include getting the hostages back. What about, usually when there's a deal, there's something, it's a quid pro quo. Somebody gets something. So if Israel gets the hostages back, Israel will have to make concessions, one assumes. But it's never anything other than, oh, they've got to get the hostages back. Well, I understand that, but what are you going to give up in order to get that? How is it possible that the Prime Minister of Israel can be forced to sit in a courtroom all day long over nothing, cigars, Bugs Bunny doll, etc.? It's a political witch hunt, very similar to the witch hunt that I was forced to endure. This travesty of justice will interfere with both Iran and Hamas negotiations.
Why?
It's news to us, that there are Iran and Hamas negotiations going on, but and that Bibi is just, I'm in the courtroom all day. I can't get into I can't do my negotiating. In other words, it is insanity doing what the out of control prosecutors are doing to Bibi Netanyahu. Out of control How does he know that they're out of control, these prosecutors in Israel?
And Donald Trump, this is long standing. This was going on before October 7th. Okay, this is
He said himself since 2020. It's going on 2020. This is it's 5 years. This has been going on. Out of control prosecutors. I'm surprised he doesn't accuse them of working for Iran or
yeah.
yeah. It's like, what does he call Chuck Schumer? Palestinian Chuck or Hamas Chuck or something like that?
It hasn't stuck.
No,
Okay,
I don't think so.
I like a Tel Aviv Ted though. That's a good one.
Tel Aviv Ted is good. The United States of America spends billions of dollars a year, far more than any other nation, protecting and supporting Israel. And we are not going to stand for this. Ooh, you're going to invade Israel? That sounds interesting.
Well, I mean, Joe Biden had the prosecutor general fired in Ukraine. I guess Trump wants to have the prosecutor general fired in Israel.
Exactly. Yeah. That's right. Exactly for the same thing. You've got 6 hours. Otherwise, that $3 billion check isn't. You're not going to be able to cash it. We are not going to stand for this. We just had a great victory with Prime Minister Bibi Netanyahu at the helm, and this greatly tarnishes our victory. Let Bibi go. He's got a big job to do. So,
Yeah,
again,
but
we get back to this question: why is he doing this? Who's putting him up to it? Why is he going to all this trouble for this Bibi prosecutor? What does he care? I mean, what do you care that Netanyahu has got legal problems? I mean,
and
he's the
all
prime minister of another country. What the hell do you care?
Trump creates primary evidence with this type of communication.
Right.
We just
We had to
had
just agree to exactly.
okay, well that put that in the affidavit, okay? Because everyone we're I don't know where we are in this, but this is far, far from over.
Right.
And Trump thinks it's discreetly, there's a line crossed over it. No, this is open-ended.
Right.
And when you keep saying we just had
Right.
a great victory, well,
Right.
you're connected in your caboose to Netanyahu.
Right.
And in my personal opinion, he will surely, sorely regret it.
I think so. We had but this he's been touting this through all these truths and everything else, and so here we had this great victory, and he's taking it so personally that Bibi is being prosecuted. Imagine any other leader. I mean, let's say Keir Starmer. Let's say Keir Starmer had legal problems. Trump wouldn't say anything. So you'd say, I love Keir. He's a great guy. I like him. But ultimately, he's not going to say the British government, the prosecutors in Britain must immediately drop their case against Keir Starmer. He wouldn't. But this is somehow personal. How, well, the temerity. We will not stand for this. Oh, so what are you going to do? Whom are you going to cut off? You're going to cut off Bibi from the money? He said, we give him all this money. Okay. So whom are you going to punish?
Does he think that prosecuting Netanyahu tarnishes his reputation? Is that part of his calculus? It seems strange to me because Donald Trump he's not a couple guy. He's not he doesn't have his equal partner.
Right.
Everyone is below him,
Right.
but he elevates
Yes,
Netanyahu.
that's right. That's it.
There's no other person that he's ever done
No.
that with. We're aware of.
And this is and this goes back. I think your point about the Israel really isn't actually a particularly valuable commodity in the United States right now. But you have these America firsters, who read this and they say, well, what does any of this got to do with America first? It sounds like Israel first, Bibi first. It's like you're doing things for Bibi that he wouldn't do for you.
That's right.
That's not like you. You're supposed to be this tough, hombre, and you're doing things for him that he has pointedly refused to do for you. He's never helped you out on anything, and yet you're in this obsequious, and you now send two lengthy truths, demanding that the case against him be dropped.
Also, it's very important to keep in mind. In politics, you have political capital, and you should only expend it
Yep.
when necessary
Right.
and in a very calculated manner.
Right.
You expend capital to further yourself and your
Right.
agenda. That does neither here.
No. 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 That's right.
Look, everybody, I suppose among the evangelical Zionists, Bibi is, a prophet for them.
Right.
Don't think it's a I don't think it's double digits in the MAGA
I
movement.
don't think so.
Okay. I think it's maybe a single digit.
I don't think.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
But no, this isn't their calling card.
Right.
Okay. Now, as George mentioned at the very, very beginning, this is kind of a switch and bait thing where, you expend your capital and you explain it why it was important and how
Right.
it benefits us,
Right.
the Trump. He hasn't done
He
any of
hasn't
those.
done any of that.
It's just so remarkable. The parallels to 2003 are valid. I think it's really important to discuss that.
Right.
But the Bush administration put so much time and
Right.
resources
Yeah.
into cultivating a consensus, and it was artificially created. They
Right.
succeeded. Okay, they
Right.
did.
That's right.
Okay.
That's right.
But
That's right.
none of the ingredients of that are here. It's like Trump individually, singularly, is going to bat. And
Right.
it's really, it's not political good sense to
No.
do
I
so.
no. I don't think so.
Why you tying your fate to an individual, not
Right.
just a country, but an individual?
Yeah. 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 No. That's right. And it's very peculiar. And even when you go through all of Trump's statements, he has not remotely done anything to justify the attack on Iran. The best he's been able to do is Iran posed a threat to Israel. Okay, what does the United States care about? What does that matter to us? But all of this, when you read these things through, all of it is about Israel. And that's a real problem if you're going to do, oh, this is MAGA, this is America first, when your entire, even when he talked about Khamenei, he didn't even say, oh, Khamenei claims he defeated the United States. It's like he doesn't care about that, but he's outraged that Khamenei said he had defeated Israel. So this is a truly very peculiar, and you have to think that Trump will regret this. At some point, his political fortunes will start to decline as his popularity declines, and he's going to regret having said all these things and tarnished his brand as America first. And then here he is. What great people I met at NATO, including some of the world's most incredible leaders. Just to end on a fatuous note.
A name doesn't come to mind. Maybe you can think of someone
Yeah,
incredible.
yeah. I think that this Mette Frederiksen, she's the Prime Minister of Denmark. I think she's an incredible leader. I think that she's the one who strikes me as being an incredible leader. Um,
Yeah, yeah. The same country Donald Trump wants to take
right, take a
Greenland.
chunk out of. Um, Imagine what great people I met at NATO, including
Ooh.
some, yeah, fantastic guys. They were just fantastic. Some of the world's most incredible leaders. Wow. Um, so, so when we go through these truths, we're still in a way kind of trying to figure out some some rhyme or reason to this. We say, okay, he does something for Mark Levin, and then he will say, oh, wait, I'm very limited, fine. But he immediately goes back to doing something for Mark Levin. It sounds like Mark Levin is drafting these truths for him. Somehow going into bat. The United States government, he's throwing the weight of the United States government behind Bibi Netanyahu, which is quite unheard of.
Well,
That
and and even more bizarre is he's throwing his own legacy
Yeah,
behind him.
yeah,
I mean, which something he is so vividly conscious of. I mean, when he arrived in The Hague like an emperor, that's exactly what he likes. Okay, that's exactly what he likes.
yeah.
So, every president is different, but I've never seen a president put his personal
Right,
standing online like this.
right,
No way.
right.
No.
Yeah.
And it begs the question, why? And we don't have an
No,
answer.
we don't have an answer. We don't have an answer. But you having voices like Marjorie Taylor Greene, who raise these questions. She's very popular. Now I agree there aren't too many voices like hers inside Congress. Nonetheless, she does have a following, and she really was one of the first of the sort of the MAGA acolytes. You don't push her aside, um, just like that. You might do it with Thomas Massey. He's been around for a long time. He's always been a kind of a quirky libertarian, so Trump can attack him. He can't afford to attack Marjorie Taylor Greene, but she openly says, it's about Israel. We in Congress are continually badgered by AIPAC, by the Israel First lobby. And when she looked at this Trump foreign policy, it says it's all about Israel.
Well, and Marjorie Taylor Greene, if she wants to make her position as a congressman from Florida her lifelong ambition, she can do it.
Yeah, yeah,
She will be reelected and reelected and reelected unless she has some kind of catastrophic
yeah.
event in her life. I mean, she's got one of the safest seats in Congress.
Right.
Okay.
She's from Georgia, and
I'm sorry, Georgia.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But her majority continues to increase with every
Greece.
election. Her majority continues to increase. So she's a very, very successful politician, and when she says this is all about Israel, that has resonance. This isn't just somebody shooting mouth up. She just says this policy is about Israel, and I don't understand it. I thought we were doing America first. Why are we doing it for another country? And then when you look at these truths, it's head scratching. I mean, there's nothing here that you can even. Well, let's see if I can do some convoluted logical chopping to see some rhyme or reason here. This is entirely identifying the United States with the fate of one man in Israel who is hated, a very unpopular figure in Israel. And after this war, it's very unlikely he's got much of a future. Well, maybe he has, but at least Trump doesn't know that. He's I mean he is a hated figure, and yet he's identified the U.S. government with him.
But particularly since BBC's Trump is a useful idiot.
Useful idiot, absolutely useful idiot.
Obviously, obviously.
Yeah. Exactly. I think Max Blumenthal used the phrase "a dumb goyim." All these years, Bibi's been looking for the dumb goyim in Washington, and he finally found him in Trump.
He finally got a president that would do it.
Right.
Because he'd been trying for decades
Right.
and no dice. This time it worked.
Right.
Though he may truly regret that it got Trump to do it. I think, I think I've mentioned this before. I have a book behind me. It's called um, what's it? Exit the Kings, and it's about all the people, the leaders that were involved in the Treaty of Versailles, and every single one, to a person that had their fingerprints on that treaty, ended disastrously politically, in many cases personally as well. And I see this as the same thing. That's why I do not understand this.
Yeah.
We. I mean, my goodness, don't you want a little bit of space?
Right. No, that's right. And that's why, if he had just left it at that, if he had left it and said, okay, um, you know, we hit Iran, and now is the time for peace. I'm not going to do anything more. Okay. But he didn't leave it at that. Instead, he did those truths, several of them on Bibi, and then he went into this tirade against Khamenei, who didn't do anything. He just gave a speech. I mean,
George,
that's all. He gave a speech.
it begs the question, and I don't have the answer to it. Is has Trump just gotten used to power? It's addictive. Okay, I mean, again, watching him arrive in The Hague for the NATO summit, I was going to say he despises NATO. He just thinks it's irrelevant. He doesn't
Yeah,
think about it. It's like,
right,
why do people keep talking about it?
right,
Okay. But on the back of using overwhelming American power, which might have not resulted in the outcome that he had hoped for, but his chest is full, and he's like triumphant. He's
yeah,
like triumphant.
right,
Okay. And he likes that. I think he
right.
likes that a lot.
I think he likes that a lot. So he likes that part, and then he also thinks that he's going to be the peacemaker. So he kind of, I'm the war king, but I'm also the peacemaker. So I think he has this grotesque ideas about himself, his historical significance, and then how do you marry the thing is, oh,
Well,
peace.
we had a former president that had that messianic vision of himself, and it was Woodrow Wilson.
Right.
And look how he ended up.
He ended up, he ended badly. Um, but yeah, I mean, I think that's the Woodrow Wilson is actually is a good
Well,
analogy.
I mean, they're
No, but it's
totally
also a good
different
analogy in
people.
the sense, well, he's the peacemaker, and yet he gets America involved in that war. How did that happen? I mean, he was one minute he was supposed to be the peacemaker. He was trying to, work on some kind of reconciliation between the two sides. You had these peace plans. You had Colonel House visiting both sides, come up with peace proposals and so on. And then next minute he got himself on one side.
And a war that the United States never should have
No,
entered. It had
absolutely.
no core security interests. The conflict would have come to an end. Trade with Europe would have
Right,
resumed,
right.
and you might know the number, but the loss of life was completely for no
No reason at all.
reason
No,
whatsoever.
no, no, no,
Okay.
not at all. Not at all. He did this.
That analogy works
That's
because
right. Yeah.
attacking Iran there's no core American national
No, no, no.
security
He
interest.
did it. He
He did it.
manipulated the country into that war. He was, by essentially pretending to be neutral while he was actually helping to arm Great Britain. Therefore, he was ultimately putting Americans in harm's way. So the Germans weren't just going to allow the United States to arm Great Britain. So he did this while pretending that he was above it all. He was a disinterested arbitrator. So no, I think the analogy is great, and you're right. It ended very badly for him, and the reaction against it, which was no American participation in Woodrow Wilson's League of Nations plan. I mean, that was the punishment. Americans were very unhappy about what Wilson did. So. Um, well,
Yeah.
yeah,
I mean, again, what did the U.S. get territory out of the First
no,
World War?
no,
No, no. I mean, did it get some riches? Nothing. It got zero.
zero.
And
Absolutely.
then it bankrolled all of its allies that couldn't pay and who
That's right.
defaulted.
That's
Then
right.
we go into the Great
That's
Depression.
right. That's right. Exactly.
Woodrow Wilson, good job.
That's right. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
because the global financial system was doomed as a result of
Right,
that war.
right.
Okay, because everybody went into debt. The United States made all of these loans,
Yeah.
and then their creditors, their debtors couldn't pay, and then everything goes down a spiral. Woodrow Wilson, that's on you.
That's right. I know that exactly right. So that was, yeah, it was also, um,
There are no good wars,
no,
everyone.
no,
That's a myth.
no,
Please retire that.
that's right.
Trump believes that, okay? What
Yeah.
was good about the Second World
Nothing.
War?
There was nothing good
What
about
was good about it?
it. No, no,
It
that's
was
it.
a death machine.
Yeah, no, exactly. It was, there are no good wars and there are no good outcomes. I mean, maybe you could say the United States did well out of World War II, but that was always going to be very short-lived. But certainly, when it comes to World War One, the United States didn't do at all well out of that. But this is, this notion of peace through strength, this cliche, mindless cliche that goes back to the Reagan era. It's led one leader after another to complete disaster. You don't get peace through strength. You keep arming, you get everyone else nervous. That's just the way of the world. One side,
Also,
if one
George,
country is arming, then it's your neighbor is going to say, "Well, why is he arming? What's the plan here?" The neighbor starts arming, and then sooner or later there's going to be war.
and then nuclear non-proliferation treaty. Look what
Right,
you did to that.
right,
Look what you've done to the IAEA.
right,
Oh my goodness. There's no good outcomes from any of this
right,
here.
right,
Being able to develop a bomb isn't that hard. Okay, it takes a lot of resources, but if you want to do it, you can get there.
right,
You can get there.
right, right,
All right. I mean, the U.S. And then later the Soviet Union, they opened the door to it, and then both those powers during the Cold War realized, well, we have them, but that's maybe it would be better if we could uninvent them, but we can't, and we have to manage it. Okay, that whole urgency is gone now.
right. Yeah,
It's
no, I think that's right. I think that Trump leaves us, scratching our heads. And so, and because none of this makes very much sense, his acolytes say, "Oh, he's doing five-dimensional chess," but that's just on. We have to take that on faith because we don't really see where's the five-dimensional chess, and so what is
yeah, it's kind of like
accomplished here.
it's kind of like five-dimensional chess on a checkerboard. I can't get
Right?
my
Yeah,
head.
yeah. That's right. Yeah.
All right. I think by the time the end of this presidency, George and I will have advanced degrees in psychology because I think that's what we might need
Right.
to get us through this.
Right.
Again, the fallacy of common sense. We keep applying as much common sense as we can, and we keep coming up short, George. Sorry.
That's right.
You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's
Uh,
this is it's not a bug. It's by design, I think now.
yeah.
I don't know. Anyway, this is part of our Sunday review of a world that's in decay and collapse and just a miserable state of affairs
Great.
here. Oh, I see. You see that? Apple knows. I've been doing. There you go, Apple. Brings a smile to my face. All right, this is the Gaggle with Peter and George. We're on Local, so please go to the gaggle.locals.com. We'll be doing our live stream tomorrow at 10 o'clock Eastern time. Tuesday, George will do his live stream, and now George is going to do the chip jar spiel.
The tip jar spiel, because the dogs are making their anger felt, and it's always at me. It's always directed at me, and they say, "Well, you're just not doing enough. You're not doing enough shilling." So, I try to keep them happy and say, so I'm going to do a little bit of shilling and say, anything lying around, any coins, paper, crypto, gold, silver, straight into the tip jar. No messing around. So we're very grateful for all of your help, friendship, and support. The more you're able to donate, the more of these videos we can make, the more we can improve the technology. And above all, I mean, the dogs will just give me an easier time of it. It'd be about time. So remember, if you like the gaggle, please like, share, and subscribe. See you soon. Bye bye. Bye.